Hello, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and today's project is using the brand new Lawn Fawn Magic Color Slider along with the Wild for You stamp set to make a cute Father's Day slider card. And for the mechanism, you'll need to cut on the left hand side the sort of slider piece along with the opening, and then on the right hand side that is the sort of tab as well as the frame. And you do need to stick the tab in the slider and just kind of run it back and forth a little bit to make sure that it works properly, kind of get it loosened up a little bit. And I did cut all these pieces out of Bristol Smooth cardstock because I knew that I wanted to use my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I love Bristol for that. And I'm just tracing the opening, at least the top and the bottom of the opening, lightly with a pencil so that I can see where I want to stamp my creatures on the inside. So again, I'm using the Wild for You stamp set. So cute. I love it. And I love this crocodile or alligator, whatever he is. I don't know. Super, super cute. But it is important that you stamp or have your scene on this piece. Like, you can't really layer it, otherwise that will interfere with the mechanism of the tab. So you do need to stamp everything on this one piece so you'll see it through the opening. And as you can see, I am like doing a little bit of masking I masked off my gator so that the lion can sit on top of him, and then I masked a little bit of the lion's head so that I could stamp the crown on him. And I think the Misty is really valuable for this kind of thing because it's very important that you stamp this pretty cleanly on the inside. So the Misty helped a lot. And then you need to put a piece of acetate over this. And there is a die that comes in the die set that will let you cut the acetate to the right size. And you need to re-stamp it on top and use StazOn Ink is, I guess, the best option for this. Although I have to say, I was not real happy with the StazOn. I haven't used StazOn in a long time. And maybe I'm doing something wrong, but this was a brand new StazOn pad. So it was super wet, super juicy. And it just would not stamp well for me. Like, it was kind of, I don't know, like uneven. The edges weren't clean. They're kind of like weird and jaggedy in places. And then this crown and the butterfly would not stamp at all, like, to save my life. I mean, it would stamp sort of the outline, but it would not fill in the lines. And I went over it and went over it and went over it and went over it with the stage. Just kept re-inking it and trying it again and re-inking it and trying it again. And it just wouldn't do it. So finally, in the end, and then when I pull the little Post-it note off for my mask, it pulls off half the StazOn ink. So, needless to say, I wasn't overly thrilled with the StazOn experience. Because what I wound up doing was basically taking the acetate off and going over quite a bit of it with a Sharpie. And I even removed some pieces with some alcohol and just redrew them in because it seemed easier ultimately than trying to continue stamping and stamping and stamping it with the StazOn. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. You tell me. If anybody has any tips, let me know. But it was a brand new pad, so it's a little frustrating. But the Sharpie worked just fine. And now I'm drawing in some grass, like sort of around my gator feet and his body. And I'm using a Copic liner on the coloring part. And then I'm tracing that with a black Sharpie again to make the acetate match. And it is really important that your acetate match your image underneath basically perfectly. Because you will see the difference once you put the slider together if it doesn't line up correctly. So take a little extra time and make sure that you get that stamped well. And it can be a little frustrating, I believe me. But it's worth it in the end. It's a really, really cool, cute effect. So now I'm doing the color part of this. So I'm coloring my image that's on the inside of the slider part with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And so for my gator, I'm using 47 May Green, and then this is 40 Green to add some shading, and this gets a little bit intense because it's a very, very blue green and easy to overdraw. So I wind up like blotting some of that off. And then after I kind of get the blue green on there in a relatively decent way, and I'm using water obviously to pull the color out with my water brush. Now I'm dipping the water brush into some water. I don't have any water in my water brush. That's just the way I use it. I like the tip. I don't like adding water in the brush. Don't ask me. And then on top of that, I'm adding some 41 light green to I wanted to get kind of a blended sort of yellow green yet sort of blue green look on my gator, alligator, crocodile. I mean, I realize they're different, and probably if I were like super technically minded, I could figure out based on the snout which one it is. But either way, it's super cute and I love it. And what inspired me was my father-in-law lives in Florida and they have lots of gators, so I thought this could be kind of cute for him maybe. And this is my butterfly, so I'm using 80 violet, and I'm just pulling that out with the water. And then this is 64 oatmeal, and then I'm adding on top of that light brown, which is a really goldy brown, and so it does. So when I blend the two together, the gold kind of takes over, but that's okay because I wanted kind of a gold on the lion. And then for his mane, I'm using mid brown and dark brown, and I'm just drawing it on kind of like as if it were fur, and then I'll blend it out with water. And most of that sort of, hash marky drawing kind of blends out and you don't really see it, but some of it stays, so it's kind of cool. And here I'm fixing the splotchiness of the water of the crocodile by just sort of drawing little hash marks on the crocodile with the light green and then blending it ever so slightly with my water brush. And now I'm reinforcing the shadows on my lion with the oatmeal and blending it ever so slightly with the water brush. And then I'm going to add more of the like sort of textury hash marks with the mid brown and the dark brown again to his mane to give that some like look, so it looks like fur. And I do wind up adding a little bit of light pink to the lion's cheeks and his ears, although you won't see me do that. And I do color his nose with black right there, but then I will add black glaze pen to it a little bit later. And this is deep green that I'm using on the grass, and I'm just kind of sort of scribbling on it to like create kind of a texture. And I will add more shading and more texture as you see now to get that completed. And once everything was dry, then I went in with my sky. So I just scribbled it all on, and now I'm just smoothing it out with my water brush. And it's important that you wait for everything to be as dry as you can take it before you do this, because it's going around everything. And wet is going to flow into wet. So if you had if my gator were wet, the green would flow into the blue sky, and you don't want that. So just make sure everything's dry before you do that part. Now for part of my greeting, I'm using the word wild from the stamp set. And so I'm sort of randomly stamping it or coloring it with some Distress Oxide. So it's Wilted Violet, Faded Jeans, and Cracked Pistachio. I wanted to get kind of a multicolored sort of weird tie-dye look for that word, and that worked very nicely. And now I'm coloring the little crown on the lion with the Spectrum Noir Gold Sparkle Marker, and I will set that aside to dry because it was super wet and juicy. But now for assembly of the slider. So I'm adding 3mm adhesive all the way around the opening on the inside of the slider, because we're going to line up the acetate piece now. And this is a little bit tricky. You definitely want to be patient. Make sure you get it lined up just exactly correctly, and then peel off the backing on your adhesive, and then you're going to fold that opening over onto the acetate. And while you're doing it, make sure you hold it down in place so that it stays exactly perfectly on top of it, so you get this effect. Guess how I learned that the hard way. And now for the track for the slider tab to run on, I'm going to put 3mm adhesive on both sides of this U-shaped piece. And this is another area where you need to take a little extra time to make sure you line this up correctly. So the slider tab is sticking up there, and so I'm going to use the edges of that to align the sides of the U. So the left-hand side is the one that doesn't have adhesive on it right now, and I'm going to line that up and stick it down. Then the bottom, you need to make sure goes along the very bottom of your piece. And then same for the right-hand side, line that up with the tab, and it will function just correctly. And then you just peel off the adhesive on the top and fold it closed to close it up. Now again, be a little careful because you want to make sure you fold it correctly down in place. Again, learn that the hard way, because if you get it off even a little bit when you fold it over, you'll see it and it looks weird and it hurts when that happens. So just take a little extra time. Now my little tab there, I used the pull here from the push here stamps. And the little tab itself the die came in the color slider. Happy Father's Day, or Father's Day came in happy, and then Have a Wild was from the Wild for You. And that little heart came from the Elizabeth Craft Design stitched hearts, and I covered it with adhesive sheets, and then I covered it in bright grape glitter. Because, I realize it's a card for a dude, but I still think men can have glitter, and especially manly purple glitter, right? And I'm just using some adhesive tape to stick my little pull here tab onto the slider. And then I'm going to use some double-sided adhesive tape to tape down Father's Day. And now the slider does stick up a bit from off the front of the card. So for I do wind up putting some foam tape behind the have part to kind of line it up with the slider portion. Now just be sure when you stick anything towards the top edge of the slider that you don't adhere anything down that's going to interfere with the tab action, like pulling the tab in and out, because that could be a little bit tricky. So I made sure I didn't put any adhesive like up above the A, for example. And now I'm going to pop up the heart on some foam tape. And I'm just kind of trying to decide where do I want to put wild in relationship to the heart and the rest of it, because I wanted wild to be kind of important on the whole thing because it's sort of multicolored and cute. And so I decided to put my heart a little bit closer to my banner, and then I was going to rest wild across the frame and the heart. So I do wind up putting a tiny bit of foam tape under the eye, and then the rest of it I will adhere down with the Zig 2-8 glue pen. And after I did all of that, I thought that would be it, but I decided it needed another purple element. So I do wind up cutting out a small purple heart using the Say Cheese Again dies from Lawn Fawn. Those are also brand new and super cute. I used some Wild Lilac Gina K Designs. There you go. You see right there. Cardstock to cut that out. And I kind of liked the two-tone of my purples going on here. And I will adhere that just to the upper corner of my frame. But again, not interfering with that sliding motion. And that is the completed project. So other than my issues with StazOn and just making sure that you line everything up correctly and like take a little extra time to do the acetate and the construction of the slider portion, it really isn't hard to do at all. And I think the end result is pretty darn cute. So I hope I've given you some inspiration for like a fun wild animal card you could make for your dad or your husband this holiday season. And obviously you could use that for other occasions as well. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you need to subscribe. Also, there is a supply list linked in the video description below and over on my blog. Here are 2 more videos in my Father's Day card series for 2017. If you're interested in either of those, please click on them now. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.